The first thing that you have to be comfortable with is finding deals off market, direct to seller, or just off market and finding very good discounted deals. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another quick solo episode here on the Multifamily Wealth Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about how you can grow from 0 to 50 units in under 3 years, starting with just $25,000. Now, I'm going to share some asterisks here, share some disclaimers as it relates to me getting into this. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is recapping how I did this myself when I got into the business and the steps that I followed, as well as sprinkling in some things I learned looking back that I could have done better, and share the framework with you, specifically a 5-step process on how you can actually do this and replicate this in your own business. Now, let's just assume that you're not in some extremely high-priced market like Boston or LA or wherever, right, where properties are trading for $300,000, $500,000, $600,000 a unit. Let's assume you're in a relatively normal market, $50K to a couple $100,000 a unit type of market. That's not insanely competitive where you kind of have to take a different approach, right? Let's just some disclaimers around the edges here so that I don't get the people reaching out to me on Instagram going, it's not possible in my market. I realize that. We're speaking just generally around the steps you need to take if you're starting with less cash, minimal cash, not enough to go out there and start putting 25% down on a bunch of different properties to get you started, and how you can actually quickly grow your real estate portfolio, your multifamily portfolio. So step number 1 is you need to develop a direct-to-seller strategy to source deals. And I've done plenty of podcasts on it, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. But the first thing that you need to embrace is that you have to go direct-to-seller. You are not able to buy properties at market value starting with minimal dollars and scale your business. It's just not going to happen. It's not something that can be done because you're going to tie up all your cash in the first deal. Or let's say you get you luck into a good deal in the first one, but you pay market for the second one. You're tying your money up in these deals and relying upon the markets to appreciate rapidly or at a level that allows you to refinance quickly, a couple of years, pull your money out to redeploy into the next deal. So the first thing that you have to be comfortable with is finding deals off market, direct to seller, or just off market and finding very good discounted deals just through your relationships or your network. And the long and the short of it here is that, one, you're going to have to develop the strategy, and that also comes with developing a very specific acquisition criteria in terms of what you're going to buy to start your business. Develop that criteria, go out there, start sending some mails, start making some calls, start sending some emails. I've done plenty of podcast episodes on this. If you just scroll 20, 30, 40 episodes back in the feed, you're going to see a whole bunch of them where I talk about this far more in depth. Now, long story short, the goal here is to find a great deal. And if you're in a low enough price market, let's say you're in a market where duplexes sell for, I don't know, $100,000, you can put your $25,000 down. You get an 80 LTV loan and $25,000 with closing costs. You get in there, you're buying it for $100,000, but it's worth $150,000. Great. You can quickly refi and pull your money out of that deal, and bam, you're on to the next one. If you're in a more expensive market, you may not be able to do that. You may have to take your good deal and bring it to somebody who's going to partner with you on it and bring some, half, most of the money, right? Again, I've done plenty of podcast episodes on that as well. What I'm trying to do is help you define the actions that you need to take next if you are in this position to start building your portfolio. Step number 2 is to hire a PM, build out your team, find the GC that you want to work with, find your management company, your insurance broker, et cetera, and work out all the kinks as it relates to working with them on this first deal. Get comfortable with working with them. And one, you should evaluate, are they good at what they're doing? Are they bad? Do I have to find somebody else? Is this a team that I feel confident bringing another deal to, whether that's a GC to renovate it, whether that's a PM company to manage it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, a lot of people are going to listen to this and say, no, you should self-manage that first deal. And sure, that's fine if you want to do that. If you're local, by all means, go ahead. Obviously, you want to really start saving your cash early on, and I can appreciate the desire to do so. This is even more true if you're using some kind of specialized management strategy, like you're doing midterm rentals or short-term rentals. You're probably going to manage that yourself. You're probably not going to want to hand that off. That said, this is a reminder that we are in the real estate business to find great deals, to structure them effectively, and to create value through buying great deals, operations, and then ultimately exiting. The management itself is a commoditized service. Some management companies are bad. So again, we'll put them aside. If you have a good management company and you're paying them to do their job, sure, you could collect more revenue yourself if you do it yourself. But the reality is you're now investing time in order to do so. It's not like you're just getting better returns and without having to invest more time. You have to spend your time on the property management in order to achieve those returns, right? So you're trading some time for dollars. And what we want to do early on is spend as much time as we possibly can finding great deals. So again, this is all under the assumption that you find a great management company, but that's why we want to work out all the kinks on that first deal. You want to make sure your management company is good, that you got a good GC or two to go to, you got some good vendors, got a good insurance broker, etc. Now we move to step 3, which is repeating step 1. Again, executing our direct to seller process until we find the next deal. Now, maybe you're doing this after you just closed the first one and you don't have that refi done yet. You don't have that cash in the bank. This is where you need to start getting creative with your structure, right? Maybe this is creative financing where you're pitching seller financing or thinking about working with a private money lender who's going to finance 90% of the deal, some larger amount, and you're paying higher interest. Maybe this is, again, going back to a partner or going to a partner in general if you did it on the first one, or going back to the same partner, finding a new partner to help you fund this next deal. Long story short, you should be trying to find a deal in which you're bringing minimal cash to close, right? And in order to do that, you have to find a good deal. It all comes back to finding good deals, as we all know. You should be looking for a deal that you can buy at 20% plus below market, so that if you put your 20% down, you add a little bit of value, you're into it for 75% of the value, something along those lines, depending on the lender, depending on who you're working with, if it's partners or not. You want to be able to pull your money out in a short period of time, call it within 6 months. So that's the whole game. Let's go find another great deal at this discounted price. Let's leverage creative financing or some kind, or utilize a little bit more debt here to stretch ourselves to get into that next deal or to bring in another partner. But that's step 3, again, is executing the business plan, or executing the direct to seller plan you built out in step 1. And now starting to sprinkle in some alternative deal structures that allow you to get into that deal with minimal cash. Step 4, is to continue doing this, but in subsequent deals, to do your best to increase your average deal size. If your first deal was a duplex, maybe your second deal was a 4-unit, now is when you should start thinking about getting into something a little bit larger, right? Let's get into 6 units. Let's get into 8 units. You do one of those, next deal you should try to get a little bit bigger, 8, 10, 12 units. You should be your goal should be to try to increase as best you can your average deal size, which can be done by adjusting your list from a direct to seller standpoint so that you more intentionally market to those types of deals, adjusting your criteria in terms of what you communicate to brokers and wholesalers and other investors. What we want to do here is not just try to do a higher volume of deals to get to that 50 units, in terms of you're just going to have to do 20 deals the next year that are all single families or duplexes in size, because that creates a lot of complications in terms of your business. But to buy, call it 6, 8 units your first year, by 15, 20 your next year, by 20, 30 the year after that. And that's how we get to 50 units in that short period of time, is by doing a few of these larger deals that starting to batch those units together. Step 5 is just continue to execute this plan until you hit 50 doors. And you're going to have to start pulling all of these levers, again, once you start gaining momentum. But the good thing is, in terms of the levers, I mean, the creative financing, the seller financing, the partnerships, etc., where I've done plenty of other episodes on those where I'll dive specific into those various topics. Again, just scroll back in the feed, you'll see a bunch of them. But step 5, again, we're continuing to execute this until we hit the 50 doors. And what you're going to realize is that the deals you do early in this process, in year 1, that you're buying at great pricing, they're going to start to spit off cash that you can then roll into and snowball into other deals as you get into year 3 and as you start working through the life cycle of your portfolio, right? Maybe you bought that great deal. That first deal was a duplex that you bought at a great price. You refied it quickly. A couple of years, it goes up in value. Maybe now you're selling that in 1031ing into a 6-unit deal. And you're starting to roll some of those earlier deals that are smaller into slightly bigger deals that you're buying, or you're able to buy a few years into your journey. So again, to recap, step 1, you have to develop your criteria and get very clear on the direct to seller strategies that you're going to use to find great deals. Step 2, you buy that deal and you work out all your kinks with your team and you solidify who your team is going to be. PM, GC, insurance broker, closing attorney, all of these different people. Step three, we're going back to the well. We're continuing to execute our direct to seller marketing strategy, but now we need to start leveraging some creative financing strategies to take down deals with less of our own cash. Step four, continue increasing that average deal size, deal over deal, to put yourself in a position to where you can get to those 50 units without drastically increasing the quantity of deals you have to do. That's a big learning lesson that I took away from getting into this business, or looking back as it relates to what I was doing when I got into the business. I should have just forced myself to take incremental steps from a deal size standpoint. I did a whole bunch of twos, threes, and fours for years when I should have really tried to do a handful of threes, a handful of sixes, get into the 10s and the 20s. Step five, continue to execute until you hit the 50 doors, right? Just rinse and repeat. So hopefully this was helpful for some of you out there in terms of building the framework of where you should be spending your time and where you should be focusing your energy. And some of you are probably at different stages along this process. But again, to define what you need to do next, you obviously need to build a roadmap and a plan. Hopefully this helps you do that. If you did learn something in this episode, if you took something away from this episode, please consider leaving the podcast a rating and review. Always love seeing ratings come in. We're getting close to 300. I'm hoping we can hit that by the end of the year. So again, if you've learned anything in the podcast, please take 2 seconds and just leave a 5-star review if you haven't already. But again, thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.